faceoff. Shoots it, deflected, right in. Pietrangelo save, rebound. Stastny stopped by Pietrangelo. I don't believe that save. Neither does Peter Stastny. He can't believe the save that Pietrangelo just made on him as Frankie Sparkly. Now that maneuver there to stop and rob Peter Stastny. He should get 5 to 10 for that.
Hello and welcome to episode 38 of Tendy Talk, presented by the BLPA Podcast Network. This week I chat with a goalie whose dad and grandpa combined for over 1,300 NHL goals, but he decided to be the one stopping the shots instead of scoring. This week I'm joined by Saint Olaf alum Jude Hull, whose dad is none other than Brett Hull and his grandpa Bobby Hull. So without further ado, let's get to the conversation. Perfect. Well, Jude, thanks for joining me on the podcast. When I first saw the Hockey News tweet where it said, what's the main reason you never made it to the NHL? And you had that fantastic reply that your dad and grandfather had over 1,300 goals and you chose to be a goalie. I went, I got to have this guy on the podcast to talk goaltending.
Yeah, that went a little more viral than I was expecting. It's funny though.
Yeah, it was the perfect response and almost kind of the mic drop to end the discussion there.
Yeah, I think I won. I think I won that.
Did your dad or grandpa have anything to say about that response?
So I actually stole it from my dad's Hall of Fame induction speech. Not really stole it, but like he comments on it, him and my grandpa having that many amount of goals and then going, he was dumb enough to be the goalie. He's like, I don't know where it happened. So I kind of just, it was a little bit of plagiarism, but
yeah. Hey, you got to take credit, you know?
Yeah. No one has to know that. Well, yeah.
Yeah. But on the Bar Down Beauties podcast, he mentioned that your mom was a goalie playing in men's leagues in Duluth. If we look at it and wonder how did you become a goalie, would you say that was kind of the influence to get between the pipes, or?
To be completely honest, I don't think that had much to do with it. I was pretty when I was growing up, I was pretty oblivious to both my mom and dad, and like especially my dad. Like I knew he played hockey, but I didn't know how big of a deal he was or anything like that. I really was just drawn to when my dad was in Dallas, my favorite player was Eddie Belfour.
Yeah. Mine too.
Yeah. Like I was drawn to him in the, when every team wins the cup, they put out that, the DVD on like the team's, the story of how they got there and everything. And, I would rewatch it and just reenact old Eddie Belfour saves by myself in the basement. And
yep.
Growing up, my dad got me like an exact replica Eddie Belfour Dallas Stars mask, painted by Todd Miska.
Yep.
And I wore it all the way up until high school, and it was way too big for me. I never got to an age where it actually fit. And then in high school, they like banned the type of helmet, so I had to go and get a new one.
Okay.
It's still in my room. I actually should probably reach out and ask Miska to touch it up and make it look brand new again, so I can maybe just put it on a shelf and.
Yeah. I liked when Hunter, when he was playing with the Colorado Eagles, I think it was last year, came out with the Eagle mask. It's like, if any goalie is going to wear that mask in the pros, other than Eddie Belfour, that's the one exception where it's like, all right, yeah, cool.
Hunter's got some great goalie swag, and it's always been fun watching what he comes up with designs for his pads and the helmets he and his dad create together. It's he's got some creative instincts in what he puts into his equipment, which is fun.
Yeah, he definitely got that creative gene from his dad. So, I think what a lot of people don't realize about you is, growing up, your parents were divorced, so your dad wasn't around as much because he was on the road. Even if they weren't divorced, he wouldn't have been around that much because he was on the road. How did you get into hockey, since it wasn't as big as people might think in your life at that point?
So being in Minnesota helped a lot.
Yep.
when I was in Dallas, well, I guess that, I don't know if that had anything to really to do with it. Like even when I was in Dallas at a young age, I guess this is just going off of stories my mom would tell me, but I would be the one getting everyone together to play street hockey outside. Like when I was, when my dad was in the 99 Cup run, my mom would ask if I wanted to go to the games, and I'd be like, no, I want to play like mini sticks in the upstairs like play area and stuff. So I kind of just always loved the game. And my dad makes jokes about it still. He's like, like I'm the one that should have played. Like I'm the one that loves the game. He was just the one that was better at it. Like if he could have chosen, he would have played on the PGA Tour, not in the NHL. But yeah, I think that I just kind of grew up loving the game, and then being in Minnesota, obviously it's to a whole different level. High school hockey, even youth hockey, it's all very intense, and it was just once I started playing it, there was no looking back. Didn't really have any interest in other sports, golf, I guess, but yeah.
So what drew you to the Crease?
Crease, like so Eddie Belfour. But before that, even like I was still playing forward. Like when I was in youth hockey, like squirts, mites, I was playing forward, and I just hated it. I was very lazy. There's all the skating, I didn't do it for me. Just I don't know. I think it was at one of those ages where like everyone kind of put on the pads. It was kind of like the community goalie pads that everyone had to. Once your name was drawn, you had to put them on for a game, and I don't know. I stuck with it, and I kind of say it's definitely like a bigger mistake of mine, but at the same time, like it's such an indescribable feeling. Playing in a big game or stealing a game you had no business winning, like goalie in the NHL and like soccer goalies, like goalie is the one unique position where you can win the game like all on your own. So I think I really learned to love the actual position. But I think I would have made it a little farther if I would have stuck with playing forward.
But you went with what you love, and at the end of the day, that's what us as adults always tell kids to do, right?
Yeah, totally. And I was actually just having this conversation with one of my teammates from college, and he even said, he's like, yeah, you probably would have gone further, but look at what you did with the career that you had, and the guys that I met along the way, I would never have met them. Like things just work out the way they're supposed to, I think. And,
Except that butterfly effect. If you change one thing, it takes away all the stuff you've experienced down this path.
Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned on that Bard on Beauty's podcast that Eddie Belfour was your favorite goalie, and like a week later, I had him and Dane on my podcast, and I brought it up to Eddie, and he goes, "Yeah, I knew about that," and he just kind of chuckled and kind of mentioned that he loved that, Brett's kid liked the goalie.
Yeah.
But what was that as a goalie, being able to be around and talk to your favorite goaltender?
It was cool. So like at that age, like Eddie was like far and away my favorite player in the NHL. But at that age, I don't know. I was just like it was like me watching like my favorite actor, or like seeing my favorite concert or my favorite band live. It wasn't really something I ever really thought about. And so as I grew older, it went from Eddie Belfour to then Marty Turco. Marty Turco was then like, it was like the same level. Like I loved Marty. Like he got me my pads from like maybe Bantams all the way through high school hockey, maybe even my first year junior. And he was someone I really wanted to like emulate in my style of play. Like I was my old goalie coach, who I work with, still always called me one of the best puck handling goalies he's worked with. And I kind of prided myself on it and really worked on it with, like, I got Marty Turco's, like even his actual authentic curve. He would send me a stick. So like I had that like weird heel curve. I don't know if you've seen it. so he was my favorite guy. And then I actually was playing with golf with him a couple years ago, and I actually got to tell him like you're the reason I wear 35. Like I wanted to be just like you, and he was saying he got to do the same thing to Tony Esposito, who was why he wore 35.
Mm-hmm.
So that was far and away the coolest thing that I think I've gotten to do as a goalie. But as a hockey player, like the son of my dad had its perks, and I got to do these things that most people don't get to do. And yeah, it was awesome. I lived a very lucky life, and still living it.
Well, and I think that's the key is knowing that and being appreciative of that, because there's so many people that do live lucky lives and they take it for granted. Mm-hmm. Aside from your dad and aside from your grandpa, there was also another family member that played in the NHL that I think oftentimes your great uncle Dennis gets overlooked too for the quality hockey player he was. I mean, he was no slouch either.
Nope. Yeah, I've never actually met Dennis. A lot of my friends have. He's kind of like a stand-up comedian now. Not really a stand-up, but like he would do like he would always he went to that Jack Jablonski one of the events they put on. And a lot of my friends were telling me like he was the funniest guy they've ever seen. I'm like, I mean, I'd love to like hear some of the jokes that he has and everything, but yeah, I've never actually gotten the opportunity to meet him.
Well, hearing some of the interviews your dad's given and having the pleasure of meeting your grandfather, I'm not surprised that humor runs in the family. In fact, the one time I had the pleasure of meeting your grandfather, it was at a grand opening of a Target in the Chicagoland area where I grew up, and my mom was working there, and me and the general manager's kids were the only kids there from the employees who played hockey. Well, your grandfather and Sam Makita were supposed to show up and sign autographs, and they showed up an hour early before the store even opened. So they're like, well, let's put you guys back in this room. And well, these two guys are here. Go back and talk to them. So me and this other kid were maybe squirts at the time, have Stan Makita and Bobby Hall all to ourselves. Like, oh my God. And they're just telling some great stories. And I remember they had these printed up pictures of the two of them, black and white, because most people probably didn't have anything for them to sign. So they wanted something. Your grandfather starts writing to Joseph, but he just completely butchers the spelling of Joseph. So Stan Makita puts his hand over his clean side of it, rips it off, and goes, "You illiterate SOB, at least my side's still good, and I'm going to keep that." And he folded it up and put it in his pocket. Yeah.
From what I've experienced with my grandpa, he was one of the best at never saying no to an autograph. Or he always made time for the fans. So I always appreciated that. And even my dad, he was always really good at it. I think my dad had a little more of a shorter fuse. So once he got to the point where he's like, all right, I'm done. He's like, I'm done. I can't sign anymore. I got to go to wherever I'm supposed to go. But if it were up to my grandpa, he would sign autographs till every single thing was signed, which it's pretty cool.
I was watching a Blackhawks video of the old Chicago Stadium, and he talked about it in there. He said he always made time for the fans because if it wasn't for them, he wouldn't have a job.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of young professional athletes that could learn from that.
Yeah. My dad still says that. Like he says, the fans are the most important part of the game, and any change that comes with the game should be for the benefit of the fan. They're the ones paying the tickets to come watch. And my dad he kind of ingrained that in my mind. Not that it really mattered, but that's something he always said, and it's clearly from his dad.
You say that, but having played in the MIAC myself, and those kids still come to those games and they look up to, it doesn't matter the level. There's always kids looking up to us. Even when we played high school hockey, there were kids that were looking up to us, and that little fist bump coming off the ice or something goes a long way with those kids. Yeah. I remember hearing on one of the podcasts you did, you mentioned wanting to pave your own way based on the talent, not the name on the back of the jersey. And you clearly did that as a goaltender. But it couldn't have been easy with opposing players. Some of the stuff they probably tried saying or doing, and even coaches at times, did you face adversity in that end just because of the name on the back of the jersey?
Yeah, so like I don't know. I'm not I never was the most vocal. I'm pretty quiet. I never really liked to get I kind of just shut my mouth and let my play do the talking.
Yeah.
But yeah, like growing up playing junior, I definitely got a mouthful here and there, and it was just something I learned at a very young age to kind of just ignore. And
Mm-hmm.
the older I got, the more aware I was that, like, yeah, I'm not as good as my dad. I don't really care. I'm as good as I am, and that's all. That's all I can really do. I can play, and
I don't know if I'd say I'm not as good as my dad. I would say I didn't have the same skill set as him because you did something completely different.
yeah,
You got in front of the pucks.
yeah. Also, it's also a bad position to be when you're 5'8".
Yeah.
That's a hard path to follow. And but it's funny. Like in the MIAC, most of the goalies, my 4 years, most of the goalies that led the league in either wins, save percentage, the best goalies were the smaller athletic goalies,
Mm-hmm.
which was always cool. And I was kind of that's something you kind of are exposed to always as a goaltender. You want to be big, you want to be a blocking goalie, and
Yeah.
that's just like not the case. And it's you can make anything work. And like the best goalie in the league, I think it was my sophomore year for St. Mary's, was like 2-3 inches shorter than I am.
Yep.
So
Yeah. Who is that goalie? I'm trying to remember back then because
Heinley, I
oh
think it's
yeah, yeah,
Phil. Was his first name, I
yeah,
think.
because he had a brother on the team too. Yeah,
Yep.
I remember watching him play a couple times
Yeah,
because
and then there was that, and then me, and then Sam Nelson he's kind of bounced around a couple teams now, but he was in Concordia, and
mm-hmm.
he's a freak athletically. So it's always fun seeing the smaller goalies do
Yeah,
well.
and it's funny you mentioned that because just yesterday I was having the conversation with one of my goalie partners from St. Mary's. I'm 5'10", he's about 5'9", and we mentioned on how, this emphasis on goalies 6 foot plus. To us, it doesn't make sense because the smaller athletic goalies tend to be the better ones.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have a Napoleon complex where we feel like we have to try harder and can't give up on pucks or what, but there's just a little more effort we have.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with like you were saying, like we're told basically if you're not 6 feet tall, you're not going to succeed in a position. Like my sophomore year, so I didn't play a game my freshman year. We had a senior goalie who played all but one game.
Yeah.
My sophomore year, there was like 3 guys battling for the position, and one of them, he's like 6'3", 6'4", and I was told by our assistant coach that I'm not playing because I'm not as tall as him. That I like almost verbatim, I was told those words, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, this makes no sense. Like I'm clearly the better goalie. The best goalie in the league is, like I was saying, like Heinley and St. Mary's, and I didn't understand that logic. So then he ends up actually quitting and transferring to just like go to a new school just for school, no hockey or anything. And then me and a guy that then followed up and transferred middle of the season, me and him split almost every single game from my sophomore year until I graduated. And I went on, it was all conference my junior year. Senior year, I played just as well, just team. We couldn't put it together a lot of the nights, but it was just it was a ton of motivation for me, and I was just like, that shouldn't be what is deciding who's getting the start. It should be how the guy looked all 4 days before practice or in practice the weekend before, and Yeah, it was just I learned at a pretty young age to like really take what I'm told and use it as motivation.
Yeah.
Um, like even so, my junior year after all stuff went down, Mike Eves comes in and takes over the coaching job, and after our however long it was, couple weeks of just of skates before the season started, I was told that I was going to be the like bona fide backup goalie. This
Mm-hmm.
new guy, Eric Hancock, was the starter. I was the backup. So I approached him right after the skate, and I was like, what can I do? Like, he laid it out. He gave me like 3 or 4 things that he really wanted to see me improve on. I could not have put more of an emphasis on that in our practices and in the games that I did get. I ended up we ended up in Superior one weekend, and I got a 36 save shutout, and we won 6-0. And from then on, it was me and Coxie splitting every game, and
Mm-hmm.
it was it was just fun. It was something I needed the motivation and the challenge, and
Yep.
um, it was humbling, and at the same time, it was rewarding and motivating.
Well, in the level of play in the MIAC, it's Division three, but I think if people come out and watch it, they're going to realize it's high quality college hockey. You know,
Totally.
it's just as exciting as going and watching the Gophers on a Friday night.
Yeah, it's the biggest difference that I've found has been the clean tape to tape passes,
Mm-hmm.
just the overall individual like skill, I would say. But otherwise, it's pretty maybe not even individual skill. I'd say speed. But otherwise, it's awesome hockey, and
Yeah.
it's competitive, and like the really good teams, the Augsburg, St. John's, St. Thomas is they're fun, like they're fun challenges, and
Yeah.
it definitely doesn't get enough credit.
Now I was a 4-year JV All Star, but that didn't mean, it was just a step below, the varsity. But at that time, almost all the MIAC teams had JV teams.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, it was fun to see St. Thomas on the schedule. And it's
yeah,
like that's my game to prove to the coaches that maybe I should get the look to be called up
sure.
or something. And
Yeah,
I loved those games. In fact, I was playing against St. Thomas, and we were having a game, and I was just standing on my head, just playing lights out. And unfortunately, the team we lost our gas in the third period, wound up losing in overtime, and
sure.
or no, we tied is what it was. We tied, and I was so upset because I felt I let the team down because I couldn't make one more save. It's like,
Right.
no, we wanted to beat these guys. We wanted to beat the big bad purple St. Thomas. Yeah. So what drew you to Saint Olaf of all the MIAC schools? What drew you to Saint Olaf?
So I originally really wanted to go to St. John's. That was like if I could have chosen it and had my way,
Mm-hmm.
I would have played for St. John's. And then I was recruited by Sean Goldsworthy. Um, he blew a lot of smoke, and I kind of my freshman year I came in, and there were 2 other freshman goalies coming in, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I was just kind of a weird thing right away that I saw. And even back then he was telling us the brand new rink was 1 or 2 years away, and finally came like the summer after I graduated, which of course is usually how it works out. New
Yep.
Jersey's new rink the year after you're done playing. But so I was recruited there, and I played my 2 years of junior hockey outside of the state, so I kind of wanted to come home.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it worked out. I visited with my mom, and the campus is beautiful. The food is probably best in the state, and it's top in the country. I know it actually is. It's so that was a huge bonus. And then once I met the guys, that was the seller.
Yeah.
I fell in love with the 13 guys in my freshman class, and I'm still best friends with the majority of them, and
Yep.
we still hang out on the weekends. Like that, above anything else, like that was the most important thing. The hockey was a huge bonus, but the friendships I made at St. Olaf, was I'll never be more. I can't be more grateful.
Yeah. So you did play for Goldie, and I chuckled when you said his name because I used to work our St. Mary's hockey camps in the summertime, and he would come work them, and he's a character. He's got stories for days. He's somebody else, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
he sure does.
Yeah. And that rink, even I graduated in 2003, and even back then he said, yeah, we're getting a new rink. It's coming. And they finally did get it. Again, yesterday I was talking to my buddy Nolsey, and he goes, yeah, I still remember getting dressed for games at Saint Olaf, then having to get on the bus to go to the game. It's just crazy setup. And he didn't realize that Saint Olaf finally got the new rink, but which leads me to a question. What was your favorite rink outside of Saint Olaf to play at in the Mayak?
So outside, so I mentioned I split every game with Eric Hancock.
Yeah.
It's funny. I don't know if Mike Eves kind of played it out this way, or if it just he kind of did after it started working. But for some reason, I got every single away game. My junior year, they were calling me the Road Warrior. Like I think I played like 2 or 3 home games, but otherwise it was all on the road. So I got to experience all of them. And I found myself having the best games up in St. Cloud against St. John's.
Okay.
My first ever win. I was credited the Tide won in a shootout in my first ever game. My first ever like regular season win was up in St. Cloud against St. John's. Kind of like a statement game for me. Like I said, I wanted to go there. I was emailing the coach and everything, and he kind of big leagued me a little bit, and so I got the start. We won 4-2. I had 44 saves, and that was like a big moment in my career. And I played up there a couple more times, and it was almost the same storyline every time. If we didn't win, we lost, and I had 50 saves.
Yep.
If we won, it was 43, 42 saves. For some reason, I really liked the Olympic size sheet. As a smaller goalie, the game kind of spread out, and I found it easier tracking pucks and just kind of keeping up with the pace. And as a smaller goalie, the plays never really came up like on top of you, right? Like at St. Olaf, it's such a small, tight rink, especially in my zone, where like these big guys I would have 3, 4, 5 guys right in front of me, and it'd be battle trying to find the puck. So I didn't find that. I didn't have that issue there. Like St. Mary's, there's another really wide rink.
Yeah. We never used it to our advantage while I was there either. But I agree. It's nice when you're on that Olympic sheet. It spreads out the play, so it almost slows things down for us.
Oh, yeah, totally.
It's not like when you go to Gustavus on that tiny little sheet of theirs. And I've told the story a couple times on the podcast of being used to that Olympic sheet, getting that big push, because we had all sorts of real estate behind our net. And then I go to Gustavus, and there's like literally this much room. And that first game, I get a big push, and thinking I'm still at St. Mary's rink, and I go into the board so hard I bounce off of it, and the puck rings by me, and I look at the bench, and my coach is laughing at me, and like, oh, I forgot to tell you something. It's like, oh boy, that was a fun rink though.
Yeah, I think the Mayak is great for that reason too. Is there's a ton of all the rinks are so diverse, and you got to be aware of the fun little quirks that come with it.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons. I don't know why I always played well at Augsburg. Something about that rink, I played well there. I don't know if it was because I was disgruntled because of those locker rooms or what, but I played well there too. It was always fun. Yeah. So I have to mention, because it's on your sweatshirt, you're a goalie coach at a pretty well-known hockey school. How much do you enjoy coaching as opposed to playing?
I love coaching. Coaching's great. If I had it my way, I would coach all older guys. Just um, they're more fun to coach just because they're more receptive and they're wanting to learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I'm coaching the younger age, they it's more so just they're just there because their parents paid and
Mm-hmm.
they're learning the fundamentals. But when I coach the high school level and on, they're there, they're battling. They're like I usually get off the ice full sweat, like
Yeah.
need into my shirt. That's when I'm really enjoying it.
Yep.
So I think I have a ton of experience and knowledge to help improve their games and but it's even the young age though it's so fun and it's so rewarding and Ty Gretzky putting on the Gretzky Hockey School, it's a top tier camp for the younger age kids and
Mm-hmm.
I have so much fun helping out whenever I can.
I love when I'm coaching younger kids, just that light bulb when they finally get what you're trying to tell them. That's really fun. And then with the older kids, it's, like you said, that attention, like they want to get better. So they're like, yeah, tell me what you can. And, and especially with goalies, you work with them on something that's lagging in their game. And then the next game comes and they execute it perfectly and make that save. And they just look at you with that smile. It's like, it's almost like making the save yourself. It's that exciting.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's rewarding and I'll do it as long as I can. It's hard with a full-time job, but
Yep.
I try and do it as much as I can.
Yeah. I was coaching at the high school level in Forest Lake until my kids were born. And then I decided, I should probably spend some time with them. So,
Right.
maybe once they're done with high school and whatnot, I'll get back into coaching, but we'll see. I mean, I still do some baseball coaching and whatnot for my son.
Okay.
But yeah, it's fun working with those kids, just seeing them get it. So I mentioned the Augsburg rink, and I know I'm going through your Instagram feed. It looks like you're still playing some beer league on a team with a former podcast guest of mine, Connor Beaupre.
Yep.
So you're skating out in that league. I know Connor likes to skate out too. Is he ever kind of needling you like, hey, can you play out this game so that I can put a few in the
No,
net or what?
no, he's permanent goalie. He's never even mentioned it. I also wouldn't be the guy to ask just because I sold all my gear outside of my pads and helmet. So I'm full left winger now.
Oh boy.
Yeah, Bopes is awesome. Bopes is maybe the greatest men's league goalie you could ever ask for. He puts up with our bad defense, and then on top of that, he'll take a shot to the head and laugh about it. Whereas if I took one to the head, I'm getting off the ice. That's how I was in practice too when I was still playing. You hit me in the head, I'm not gonna. You're not gonna have a goal the rest of the drill.
I wasn't quite that bad. If you hit me in the head from the corner when I was focusing on another shot, then I got upset. But if it was in the play, okay, I probably pulled the Dominic Hasek and put my head in the way anyway.
Yeah, I guess it was more so for like the flow drills, the drills that you're really trying to just dip your toes in the practice and get warmed up. For some reason, my team always just was bad at it, and it got to a point where Mike Eves like had to say several times like he got the team together and was like, this has to stop, like quit hitting our goalies in the head. Yeah, I never understood it. I'm like, it shouldn't be that hard. We're all college athletes.
Yeah.
But it happened more than I'd like, and I was maybe a little bit of a diva about it. But I don't know. I don't think they'd enjoy getting hit in the head either.
When I was coaching, we had a similar issue with our team. So I talked to the other coaches and said, whenever I see it happen, I'm just going to blow the whistle and everybody but the goalies is skating. And they're like, okay, fair enough. Yeah. Only happened for about 2 practices before the boys finally realized, let's not aim for the goalie's head. The errant one is one thing, but aiming, Not going to stand for it.
No,
Yeah.
it's and you see it like in any like NHL practice footage and stuff. You're seeing guys like it's all low shots. Um, but yeah, it's kind of the classic response is like, oh, well, you signed up for it. And I'm like, well, even if I did sign up for it, why are you trying to like hurt your guy? Like, don't.
It doesn't help.
Shoot at the other team's goalie.
Doesn't help that your grandpa was the one saying that, his first shot of the game was usually at the goalie's head.
But again, to my point, it wasn't at his own goalie's head.
Right. Yeah. And there was strategy behind that one. He just had that shot. He wanted to scare him so that, when he wound up for that legendary slap shot, the goalie maybe stiffened up a little bit and wasn't going to be as quick.
Yeah. And my dad always said this too. He tells all the guys that still play, that first shot, if guys are going to lay down and block shots, like shoot it, try and like break their bones so they don't want to block it anymore.
Yep. Yeah.
It's definitely there's some strategy behind it.
Yeah, there is. So switching gears away from the rink, you interned at the NHL Network working special events, which had to have been awesome to go to all these different things. But you've since transitioned and now you're a financial advisor. I read you went to school for economics, so clearly it's something that you've had interest in, but that's quite the swing from working on events to financial advising. Right. What happened there?
Yeah. So my junior summer, I interned with the NHL and got to meet the great team that I was eventually working with. Like Steve Mayer is the the chief content officer, which I didn't even know was a thing until I worked for the NHL. And he's a genius in the game. Like he's responsible, and I don't think he gets like nearly enough credit, but he's responsible for all the phenomenal events that the NHL does, the outdoor games, the All-Star game, the draft awards. He's behind the scenes getting the talent, putting on the production side of things. He's the one trying to grow the game and content and the personalities with the players. Like that's how you're going to do it.
Bringing in Chance the Rapper to reprise his role from Saturday Night Live. That was brilliant.
Yeah. So things like that so Steve Mayer does, he's the brains behind the operation. But so when I was interning there, I got to go work the awards, which ended up introducing the roster for the Golden Knights. And I built a great relationship with that team. And the following year, I just stayed in contact with them. I actually missed a couple I left for one of our off weekends. So we didn't have games or anything. And I went and worked the Winter Classic in Citi Field. It was Buffalo versus the Rangers. And Mike Eves let me do that, which was awesome of him. And it just helped me maintain that contact and relationship. And that summer I got the job, and it was a lot for me. I went from Stillwater, Minnesota to Midtown Manhattan. And I didn't know anyone. There was a ton of change going on in my life, and I was dealing with a ton of personal stuff. So I made it just under a year, and I was just like, I need to go home. New York was great, but home was where I wanted to be. Minnesota is where my heart was, and my family and all my friends are here still. So I grew up like best friends with the Sagasor family, and Tom Sagasor is the president of Wealth Management. And so I ran into him over a Thanksgiving break when I was still in New York. I talked to him about how I was pretty unhappy in New York, and he kind of made it all happen and got me an interview, and one thing led to another. I was studying for my Series 7 and grinding away with the books, and now we're here 2 years later.
That's awesome. It's quite the transition too, not easy, but I totally get, New York almost being too much. I grew up in Chicago and I loved it as a kid, but to go back there now, I'd be like, no,
Yeah.
I like the calm of Minnesota.
Yeah.
It's a short little ride to the cabin and the peacefulness, and not to mention
Yeah.
all the opportunities to play
It's
hockey.
it's it's awesome. My hockey team, my 4 years and my graduating class was like predominantly out of state guys, and it just shows you how much Minnesota is.
Mhm.
It can change your mind in an instance. They all stayed. They didn't go back home.
Yep. I went to school in Winona in my sophomore year. I noticed this girl from St. Paul, and as they say, the rest is history.
Yep.
We're still here. Yeah. So growing up in Minnesota, most people think you're a Wild fan, but you're not. You're a Stars fan. As a Hawks fan myself, isn't it fun trolling Wild fans?
So I don't get a ton of I don't get much more pleasure doing the things than I do. But it's honestly not even I'm not trolling. I genuinely, like, I've grown up with a real dislike for the organization, and growing up around Wild fans only fueled the fire. And I don't know, there's just something about them that they're really good at taking these super average, mediocre players and turning them into superstars in their head. And I was like, what fantasy land are you living in where you think Nino Niederreiter's the next they talked like he was the next Gabrick and Hossa, and I was just like, you guys are crazy.
Well, and it's just so funny on how hurt their feelings get when you pick on their team. And
Yes.
When one of the years when the Hawks beat the Wild in the playoffs, I was skating the very next night at the Vadnais Sports Center. So I wore my Eddie Belfour Hawks jersey, wondering if that was too soon to rub it into him. And then another year when the Hawks beat the Wild in the playoffs, I hung a Blackhawks flag from my neighbor's garage, and that didn't go over too well.
Well, I do understand it. Like, the Minnesota sports is maybe the most disappointing year in and year out. And Minnesota, even this year, had a phenomenal regular season, and they're about to lose in 5 games.
I said going into it, if they can get by Vegas, I think they'll gain some confidence and be a team to watch, but I didn't think they'd get by Vegas.
No.
I
do think that this year was a little bit unique and maybe inflated some of these teams where they really weren't anything special. With, like, Minnesota got to play the 3 California teams 24 times total, and then Arizona kind of underachieved as well. So I just want to see this team of theirs in a normal season where they're having to play Dallas, Carolina, like all these teams that.
It's interesting you say that, because I do like the direction the team is going under Bill Guerin, but I do think their stats are overinflated because of the division they played in. But then you look at a team like the Blackhawks, who overachieved but still missed the playoffs because of the division they played in. It's like it was an interesting solution to the situation at hand, and I think everybody understands that. So it's been an interesting year, but I also like the rivalries that were born this year because of it.
This first round has been more electric than I can remember in recent years.
It's been a reason to watch the first round for sure.
Like, I never thought people would be in full 100% agreement that, like, Florida and Tampa Bay is the most watched series of the first round. So it's great for the game.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Now, to shift gears, on another podcast, you mentioned growing up, in a house with 2 sisters and a mom. You really like rom-coms.
Yep.
So what is your favorite one? And I say this because, I've been married for quite a long time, and whatnot. So I've seen quite a few of them, and I'll admit I like them too.
Yeah. Growing up with women my whole life, I'm definitely more of on the sensitive, feminine side. Like I don't care, and
Yep.
my favorite rom-com, probably like it's called That Awkward Moment. It's with like
Okay.
Zac Efron, Michael B. Jordan, Miles Teller. And it's funny that that movie actually was the one that like really set the bar so high for living in New York City. It like made me like want to live there. I was like that, like living with three friends. It looks like the absolute dream.
Yep. Well, it was because of the Sandra Bullock rom-com. Oh God, I can't remember which one, where the guy falls on the train tracks and is in a coma, and it's in Chicago. Between that one and then the Minnie Driver movie, Return to Me, where she gets the heart transplant. My wife just
Oh
had
yeah.
this romanticized idea of what living in Chicago would be like, and then she spent the summer there when we were in college, and she's like, it's nothing like that.
No, yeah, movies
I
are really good. They're really good at making you
Yeah.
uh, putting up this facade of what we all want things to be, but
Yep.
the harsh reality is just kind of
Yeah.
very eye opening.
Exactly. I have to say the big rom-com in our house that gets a lot of airtime is You've Got Mail.
Yeah,
Um, the kids
sure.
even like that one.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know what it. I always feel old during the opening and the sound of the modem and the old AOL You've Got Mail. But then at the time it was cutting edge. This 3D animation of New York City that they had that
Yep.
just looks old and ancient today. But
Yeah.
when that movie came out, I was like, wow, how did they do that?
Right.
Yeah.
Technology's come a long ways.
Yeah. So, in the interest of time, I don't know if you've listened to the podcast before, but I like to close out each episode with a list of 10 rapid fire questions that I've learned take longer than I anticipated for. So,
Okay.
I try to make time for them. So, the first
Sure.
question is, what's the craziest coaching moment from your playing days?
Oh, craziest coaching moment. I don't know. I would say that the majority of them would be like with Goldie.
I was expecting that.
Yeah, like he got kicked out of one of our games. But honestly, like I don't think this would be considered a coaching moment. But Sean Goldsworthy had been in Saint Olaf for 19 years, and
Hmm.
um, he um, he didn't treat a lot of the guys that I was there a ton with respect,
Hmm.
and that ended up the whole team signed a petition, essentially like asking for a new coaching hire,
Hmm.
um, which is super unique, and I've never heard of it being done. And it was just kind of a unique process to be a part of, and that eventually brought in Mike Eves, who under my 2 years at Olaf, I had the greatest 2 years of my hockey career.
Hmm.
That was probably the most unique and
Yeah.
um, yeah. Uh,
Yeah, so Goldie's an interesting guy, and I was not surprised when he said, there's a few with him.
yeah.
What is your favorite all-time goalie mask?
Favorite all-time goalie mask. So I'm not gonna. So obviously the go-to is Belfour's,
Yeah.
but I won't. I won't do that just to change it up a little. Um, Favorite all-time goalie mask. I think Ben Bishop's old mask in Tampa Bay. That when it got wet, it like changed colors with the lightning bolts. I
Yeah.
thought that was super simple and unique
Yeah.
and cool. Marty Turco's gargoyles were legendary. Um, you know what? I don't really have like a number one favorite. I don't think. I like the old school retro runs. Like I like
Hmm.
Mike Smith's in the playoffs right now,
Yeah.
where you can see the ears and it just looks like the old school hockey mask.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked when he came out with that one because we've seen the old school mask that Todd Misko is the one that started with the Gary Cheevers one for Steve Shields in Boston,
Yeah,
but Smith took it the other direction of the old school combo. It's like, all
right.
right, that's cool in the way the artist made sure that the bars lined up with the bars on his helmet. It was
Yeah,
just
it's cool.
really well executed.
Yeah, I think all the goalies in the NHL do a great job. There was a span of like a couple years where goalies were just so boring, whether it be they're designed on their pads or
Mm-hmm.
the masks. And I think the creativity is really being shown with this generation of goalies.
Yeah, well, it helps now with the digital printing that they're doing on Bauer now CCM pads. It just opens up, to a whole new, take it from the mask all the way down to the pads.
Right. Yep.
So what's your favorite rink that you've played at?
Favorite rink that I've played at. So I played. It was my first year junior. I played in Montana.
Mm-hmm.
There was surprisingly some pretty cool, like just simple rinks there. My second year in Topeka, we played to the Roadrunners home rink, and that was the biggest, coolest, most fans I've played in front of. So I'd probably say that it was the most like professional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it had the jumbo screen, and we got the instant replays and stuff. So
Cool.
I'd say that one for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What's your favorite goalie stick that you've used?
Favorite goalie stick? I was always Warrior, and I don't think when I was in it's Olaf, I don't think I used the Swagger. Funny thing about me was I never was the goalie gear guy. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just I used what I could get. I probably didn't even use the stuff that I like should have been using. But I made it work. But I never really was the guy that's like, oh, like I need the newest model of the skates, or like
Mm-hmm.
I never kept up with that stuff. But I really liked. Marty Turco's stick that I used, his Reebok, the curve. Man, I could shoot that thing so high and far. So I would have to say that stick just because it was so fun.
Yeah. I was kind of the same way with my equipment. I got stuff because I needed it.
Yeah.
And when I went to the pro shop, it felt good. So yeah, that's also probably why I've worn the same set of Vaughn Legacies like Eddie Belfour's from Dallas since 1999,
Yep.
because I'm almost scared to change and have to figure out all of these new specs. Like, where are the buckles?
Use what you like and what works. No need to change.
Exactly. So what's your favorite youth hockey memory?
Favorite youth hockey memory? What's the cutoff age for youth hockey?
There isn't one.
So like, would high school consider?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so I played for St. Paul Academy, and one of our games I don't even remember if it was a special game or not, but the student section was completely packed, and we won in a shootout, or maybe we won in overtime, and there was a penalty shot in overtime that I stopped, and the student section started singing "Hey Jude."
Oh, that's cool. What rink did St. Paul Academy play at?
Historic Drake.
Okay.
Right on Randolph.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was I'll always remember that.
That's
it was
cool.
So cool. So that gets my vote for sure.
That's a pretty good one. So what's the best chirp you've heard on the ice, off the ice, directed at you, not at you? Best chirp.
Best chirp. Oh man, I'm not gonna have a good answer for this one. I don't think there was not a ton when I was at Olaf. I didn't. I wasn't really exposed to too many either. I was too dialed in the game when I was on the bench or when I was in the net. There wasn't a ton of talking going on. I remember we were playing Dallas in my second year junior in Topeka, and I remember one of the few times I did open my mouth, the guy just piped back and was like, "Dude, your dad was in the NHL. You're playing tier 3 hockey. Shut up." I'm like, all right. That's fair.
I know in college, some of the best chirps were heard in the locker room, not on the
Yeah.
ice. So,
Yeah. Best not say those on air.
yeah, yeah,
Those are meant to stay in the locker room.
yeah, exactly. So what's the worst post-game beer you've had?
Worst post game beer.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not beer, but after games, we would always have to kind of sneak the booze onto the bus. And because most of our games were kind of, I mean, not most, but some of our road trips were either down to St. Mary's or St. John's. It's an hour and a half ride back to Northfield. And so the guys were kind of just trying to catch up and get to a level where we could just go straight to the bar after the house party that was happening. So probably just a little too stiff of like a vodka lemonade, or especially after I'm dehydrated as shit, and probably those. You're always just playing catch up on the bus.
Yeah, we had a rare Saturday morning skate for JV. It was a practice, and we never had Saturday morning skates unless we had a game that day. And my teammates, they're like, it's just practice. We're going out Friday night, and practice lasted about 15 minutes because the coach, he's like, it smells like a brewery here. You guys, like, did anybody sober up before practice? Seriously. I think it was kind of like in Anchorman. He wasn't even mad. He was just like, I should have known better not to have you guys come out here for just practice on a Saturday morning.
we would have like infamously early New Year's Day practices where like everyone's on break. There's no game the next day. And everyone, like all the guys had to stay on campus, and we would have like 8 a.m., 9 a.m. skates. And I mean, that never stopped anyone from enjoying New Year's Eve. But I remember one year, my sophomore year, where a bunch of the Euros were puking on the bench. Practice was not productive, to say the least.
I remember at St. Mary's, Coach Olson was still coaching down there when I was there. And he had mentioned that he would have those early morning practices over the breaks just to maybe not keep guys from going out the night before, but limit how long they stay out, because they still knew they had to get up and skate. He's like, it's not going to stop them, but we'll limit it a little bit. You mentioned Marty Turco, and I know he's got his own brewery now, and I hope to one day find his beer here somewhere, make it down to Texas to try that. I'd love to get him on the podcast to talk beer and goaltending. Those are two of my fortes. So when you tape your stick, do you go toe to heel or heel to toe?
I went toe to heel. So I did the Marty Turco where it would be two on like the actual paddle, and then I would go into the blade.
Okay.
2 strips and then starting on the blade. It was just something I always did because of him.
Yeah, that's not many goalies I've learned in asking this question go toe to heel, but it seems like the ones that do are the ones that play the puck.
Yeah.
Because
I don't know. I go heel to toe even with like my sticks in from men's league. So it was just something I always did. I thought it was easier.
Yeah. For me, it's easier because if I'm going to mess up that transition going through the heel, I rather start over when I've only got this much done than almost at the end.
Yep.
Yeah. You answered the next question already. I was going to ask, what's your favorite number and why, but you mentioned 35 because of Marty Turco, and that makes sense.
Yeah. It's always 35 for me.
So the last question, what advice do you have for young goaltenders?
What do I have? Obviously, like the obvious, like have fun. Life's short. Even if you're not the best, hockey's the greatest sport in the world. You make so many great lifelong friendships along the way, and then when you get older, I think one of the more important years are the junior hockey years. Even like if you know you're not going to play hockey or in college, at the college level, I think there's so much growing up to do to be done. Moving away from your family before it's like the pre-move before you move to wherever you go to school. I think junior hockey is it's a pivotal role in growing up young men, and you go into school a year, 2, even 3 years older than everyone else, and you kind of you have a different perspective on life and on school, and even like partying. It's just you're a couple steps ahead when you step foot on whatever campus that you go to. So I think I will always be a big, strong advocate of junior hockey, just as a development, not only of like your skill, but as your character.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Makes sense. So where can people find you on social media if they want to follow you?
So my Instagram is just one word, Jude Hull. My Twitter is hey_Jude35. I think that's the only social media I got.
And nothing wrong with that. And I'll put that in the show notes in case anybody wants to follow you. Jude, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. We both work day jobs, so it's sometimes fun scheduling around. I get to take my son to baseball practice after this. It's baseball season, so that always throws a wrench into scheduling too. So I appreciate it. We're both in the cities. We may have to grab a beer one of these days and maybe tell Connor to come along.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a good one. I appreciate it. Yeah. What a fun conversation that was with Jude. It was fun talking to another fellow MIAC alum. For those not familiar with what the MIAC is, that's the Minnesota Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, a really good Division III hockey conference here in Minnesota. You can follow Jude on social media at Jude Hull, all one word, on Instagram, and hey_Jude35 on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube simply by searching for Washed Up Goalie. Visit washedupgoalie.com for some great hockey-related content, my beer league hockey video highlights when I'm able to find a skate during the pandemic, and of course, all podcast episodes. If you want some Washed Up Goalie or Tendy Talk apparel, be sure to visit my Threadless shop by clicking the merchandise link on my website. If you like this podcast, go listen to the BLPA Big Show. It's the OG BLPA Podcast Network show where a couple of beer league players are chatting about beer league hockey, draft experience shenanigans, and exploits from around the game. The show is hosted by Nick Jones and former Tendy Talk guest Trish Dangles, with other co-hosts filling in occasionally. I need to thank the band The Zambonis for allowing me to use their music on my podcast. You can download their music on iTunes or wherever you stream your music from. As always, I'm working on lining up other goalies to talk to. If you are a goalie or have connections to a goalie who I should talk to, shoot me an email at washedupgoalie39@gmail.com or shoot me a DM on social media. Let's not forget, if you are a brand who wants to sponsor the show, be sure to reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk. And finally, if you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, and comment on the podcast platform you're listening on. It's a quick action on your part that helps others find Tendy Talk. Until next time, keep your stick on the ice and your body square to the puck.
Get on the train that takes me away. Not gonna see you for a while.
Why?
It's an away game. It's an away game. I'm coming home soon. Get on the train that takes me away. Not gonna see you for a while. Get on the train that takes me away. I'm coming back to you in style. It's 4 home games in a row, starting Thursday night, together again, just me and you, no more away games, just us two, just us two, just us two, just us two.